The air in Liloan grew thick with an unseen menace, a palpable dread that settled over the once peaceful village like a suffocating fog. As the days stretched into weeks, the whispers of unease that had begun as mere murmurs now swelled into a cacophony of fear that no one could ignore. "It started with the chickens!" Old Man Santos was the first to notice, his weathered face creasing with confusion as he stood before the empty coop. No feathers, no blood, no sign of struggle. Just ... absence. The other villagers clucked their tongues, offering half-hearted reassurances about foxes or wild dogs. But deep down, they knew this was different. Then came the goats. Maria's prize, Nanny, heavy with kids, vanished without a trace. The sturdy pen stood untouched, the gate still latched. Only a faint metallic dance hung in the air, a scent that made the hairs on the back of your neck stand on end. Maria's wails echoed through the village that night, a sound of loss that seemed to carry more than just grief for a missing animal. The fields were next. Farmer Rodrigo's neat rows of corn, once standing tall and proud, now bore strange, sinister markings. It was as if something had dragged itself through the crops, leaving shallow furrows that looked disturbingly like claw marks. But no animal Rodrigo knew could have made those marks. They were too precise, too deliberate. Children, usually the last to succumb to the fears of adults, began to change. Little Ah, who used to play in the streets until well after sunset, now refused to leave her mother's side once the shadows began to lengthen. When asked why, she would only shake her head, her eyes wide and hard. The other children were no different. Their laughter, once a constant soundtrack to village life, faded into hushed whispers and nervous glances over their shoulders. But it was Elias's rooster that truly drove home the horror of what was happening in Liloan. Bulldog was no ordinary bird. He was a champion, a fierce and proud creature that had never lost a fight. Elias had raised him from a chick, pouring years of care and training into creating the perfect fighting cock. Bulldog was more than just an animal. He was a symbol of Elias's skill, his pride, his very identity in the village. On that fateful morning, Elias approached Bulldog's special coop with his usual bucket of feed. The silence should have been his first warning. No proud crowing, no rustling of feathers. Just ... stillness. With trembling hands, Elias unlatched the door. The sight that greeted him would haunt his dreams for years to come. Bulldog lay sprawled on the straw, his once vibrant feathers dull and lifeless. But it was the way the bird's body looked that truly chilled Elias to his core. Bulldog wasn't just dead. He was deep, as if every drop of blood, every ounce of life essence had been drained from him, leaving behind nothing but a shriveled husk. Elias fell to his knees, a strangled cry escaping his lips. This was no ordinary predator. No fox or wildcat could have done this. The realization hit him like a physical blow. The whispers were true. Something unnatural, something evil had come to Liloan. Word of Bulldog's fate spread through the village like wildfire. Doors were bolted, windows shuttered. Parents clutched their children close, murmuring prayers and old protective charms. The elders gathered in hushed circles, their wrinkled faces grave as they debated what could be done. Some spoke of calling the authorities, of bringing in experts from the city. But others, those who remembered the old stories passed down through generations, shook their heads. This was beyond the realm of modern science or law enforcement. This was something ancient, something that had slumbered beneath the earth for centuries, only to awaken with an insatiable hunger. As night fell, an eerie quiet descended upon Liloan. No dogs barked. No night birds called. Even the insects seemed to have fallen silent, as if holding their breath in anticipation of what might come next. In homes throughout the village, families huddled together, candles flickering as they tried to ward off the encroaching darkness. Elias sat alone in his small house, a bottle of cheap rum his only company. He stared at the empty cage where Bulldog should have been, his mind replaying the horrific image of his beloved rooster's corpse. A part of him wanted to rage, to grab his machete and hunt down whatever monster had done this. But a deeper primal part of his being knew that would be whatever was out there. It was not something a mere man could face alone. As the night wore on, strange sounds began to drift through the village. A low, rhythmic thudding, like the beating of some monstrous heart. Whispers that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once, speaking words in a language no living person could understand. And underneath it all, a hunger, a vast, all-consuming hunger that seemed to pulse through the very air itself. Interred beds, children whimpered and burrowed deeper under their blanket. Adults tossed and turned, their sleep plagued by nightmares of things that lurked just beyond the edge of sight. And in the darkest corners of Liloan, something ancient and terrible stirred, savoring the fear that now permeated every inch of the village. As dawn finally broke, casting its pale light over Liloan, the villagers emerged from their homes with bloodshot eyes and trembling hands. They gathered in a town square, voices hushed as they shared their experiences of the night. Each tale was more chilling than the last, building a picture of a presence that had stalked through their streets, peering in windows and testing doors. Father Domingo, the village priest, tried to calm the growing panic. He spoke of faith, of the power of good over evil. But even as the words left his lips, doubt clouded his eyes. The old man had seen much in his years, but nothing like this. This was beyond the realm of any evil he had been trained to combat. As the day wore on, a grim determination settled over Liloan. Whatever this thing was, whatever its intentions, they could not simply cower in fear. Plans were made, watchers organized. The strongest men of the village armed themselves with whatever weapons they could find. Machetes, pitchforks, even ancient family heirlooms pulled from dusty trunks. But deep down, each person in Liloan knew the truth. These preparations, these attempts at defense, were little more than a way to stave off the paralyzing terror that threatened to consume them. For the true horror lay not in what had already happened, but in the knowledge that this was only the beginning. As the sun began to set once more, casting long shadows across Liloan, a palpable sense of dread settled over the village. Doors were locked, salt was scattered across thresholds, and prayers were muttered in trembling voices. For the people of Liloan knew that With the coming of night, the true test would begin. And in the deepening gloom, something ancient and hungry stirred, ready to continue its reign of terror.